Shalom Aleichem. Mishnah Yomi is continuing in Beitzah, chapter 3, Mishnah number 4. Bechor, a firstborn animal, shenafal labor, that fell into a pit. The Bechor is in the bore. We got a problem. As we will learn in a couple of years in Masechet Bechorot, a firstborn animal has a special kedusha, a special sanctity. If it is unblemished, it must be brought to the temple and brought as an offering. Now, it's given to the Kohanim. The Kohen is given the Bechor, and he takes it to the temple if it has no blemish. Now, if it develops a blemish, he can make barbecue in his backyard. He does not have to bring it to the temple. So a Bechor on Yom Tov, if it had the blemish before Yom Tov, is food, is like an animal that can be muchan for Yom Tov and eaten on Yom Tov. But here it fell into the pit, and we're not sure if it had a blemish or not. Yehuda Omer, Yered Mumche v'yireh. You should send an expert down, use a ladder or rope, depending on how big the pit is here, and the mumche, the expert, should examine the Bechor. Im yesh bo mum, yalev yishchot. If it has a blemish, then you could bring it out of the pit. It won't be muksa, and you can shecht it and eat it on Yom Tov. Ve'im lav lo yishchot. If it's unblemished and it's still fit to be a carbon, you can't shecht it and eat it, and you can't even take it out. It's not food, it's muksa. It's a living animal, it's muksa if it's not going to be your food. Now, importantly, the mumche, the expert, has to determine that the blemish was a pre-existing condition, so he can get coverage. It had to be there before Yom Tov, this blemish. So it can't be that he, broke his leg as a result of the fall. It had to be something that was already on the animal. Rabbi Shimon Omer, kol she'ein mumo nikar mibad yom. He says, no, if the mum, the blemish, was not already recognized from Erev Yom Tov, ein zeh min muchan. It can't be considered food, and it's muksa. Rabbi Shimon's opinion is actually based on something we'll learn later, that to judge a case is a shvut, is a rabbinically forbidden activity on Yom Tov, and this expert rendering a judgment about the sanctification status of this Bechor animal, that's like a judgment, and he would say you can't do it on Yom Tov, even if it was a pre-existing condition. On to Mishnah Hay. Now, Mishnah Hay, behema shemeta lo yazizena mimkoma. An animal that died, you cannot move it from its place. It's muksa. Now, obviously, an animal that died by itself, you can't eat it. It didn't have shchita. The Mefarshim, the Gemara say, we're dealing here with an animal of kodshim, an animal that was set aside to be an offering. Maybe he wanted to bring it the next day in the temple, and Nebuch, it passed away. He can't move it, it's muksa. And since it was intended to be an offering, he can't even cut it up for his dogs or his foxes or whatever he has for pets, because it was supposed to be an offering. It's not just a regular animal. If somebody did have an animal that was on its last legs and then passed away on Yom Tov, and he had already designated it for his klavim, for his dogs, then it wouldn't be muksa, because it's really designated as dog food from Erev Yom Tov. And the Mishnah continues, in my say, and such a case actually happened, Vishalu, and the people involved, they went and asked, it's Rabbi Tarfon, they asked the famous Rabbi Tarfon, Aleya, about this case. Vala chala shenitzma, and also about chala, that's the portion of the bread dough given to a Kohen that became tameh on Yom Tov. So now the Kohen couldn't eat it, no one could eat it. Now, this is really interesting. Even though Rabbi Tarfon was a genius, was very wise, nichnas the Beit Midrash v'shal. So Rabbi Tarfon himself went into the Beis Midrash to ask the other sages what to do in such a case. He was looking for a leniency, seeing if someone heard another halacha. V'amar lo, but they told him, lo yazizem mimkomam. They've become muksa, they are not food. This animal of kodshim that died, or this challah that became tameh and can't be eaten, they become muksa, not food. An interesting factor here, Rabbi Tarfon did not rely only on his own judgment, and in the last Mishnah, we got a mumche, we got an expert to look for a mum. Now the Gemara famously says, "Ein adam roe mum atzmo." You don't see your own blemishes. It's not just talking about a Kohen who owns an animal. We don't trust him necessarily to examine his own animal and say, "Oh yeah, that's a blemish. I can eat it right now." But as a hashkafa sense, a person doesn't understand his own foibles and his own weaknesses. It's really important, as the Pirkei Avot says, "Aseh lecha rav," to get an outside opinion to see your own mumin and work to improve them. Yashar kuchachem, sei gesund.